See the rust that's collected on this. I've let this one go for a little too long, but that's essentially what I'm going to buff off. Like I say in my previous video, this shouldn't take very long at all. It seems like it would because there's a lot there. You can see here there's a little bit of grime on there. That's what these pads are really good for. They're good to get the final really nice shine on there. Remember, most of these techniques are for practice swords, and this type of pad I would never use on my sharps, the swords that I like to keep more polished. These are for more general maintenance of practice weapons, and that's about it. That's all I'd use these for. This part here doesn't have as much as a grain as here. I'm a little less careful on what direction I'm sanding here, because once again there's so many crevices and whatnot, you sometimes have to go in multiple angles just to get at something. If there's a groove that's got some rust in it, etc. Now the awkward part on a sword like this, or a rapier like this, is getting on the inside of the cup. Once again, that's where one of these can help, because you can bend it and you can get it right on the inside. Sandpaper works too. If you have good sandpaper, you can get it in there and have it not tear. So I'll go and do the inside, and then all I have left is a little bit of the guard here and the pommel. All in all, I think I've been working on this for like 5 minutes. And now we have my darkwood longsword, another practice weapon. This one doesn't have much rust. It just needs a buffing. Good old cleaning, a little bit of oil. So the rapier took me about 10 minutes in total. So I'll begin on this one. That was after using a 120. As you can see, what I was explaining before, the harder grit you use, the more scuff lines you'll get along your sword. So that's the importance of going in the same direction all the time. And then if you care about the overall quality and look of your sword, the easiest way to get rid of those, or start with a 600 and then go to 800 and a 1000. You can even start with an 800 or a 1000. It's good enough to actually buff off rust, and you'll get far less lines. If you do start, as I do, with something more abrasive, then you just move up to a 600 and then an 800, and then eventually this cloth, and most of these lines will be gone. I like to actually keep some lines on here. I just happen to like the overall look of having a little bit of grain going up the blade. But also, as I've mentioned before in another video, these are my practice weapons. I don't like them to look super shiny and buff. I just like them to be clean and last a little longer. Fingers get all dirty, so if you don't like dirty fingers, wear gloves. So I'm finally at my regenyei, good old fetter. Right there, there's the mark of the smith. This is a really, really well crafted weapon. A lot of hema practitioners use this. Nice and durable. I have yet to have the crossguard come loose. Have yet to have the sword bend out of shape. The edge holds up quite nicely. I'll do a full review of this soon. As you can tell, this is one I use the most. It just needs a little bit of a cleanup. Doesn't need much at all. Just a little one. Alright, here we are. There's all three swords. A little bit shinier than they were. By no means are they buffed or are they polished, but that is just futile for a training sword, especially when they're all about to get used very, very soon. So the next step, what is the next step? The next step is a cleaning with alcohol after I clean my hands, after I clean my horrible apartment work table. It's essentially an IKEA coffee table that I got for free. One leg is barely on, but it does the trick. So I'll clean up the whole area, get all the dust and everything away from here. I'll give it a quick wipe down with alcohol, just to get any of the metal filing residues and whatnot off the blade. Once that is done, I will then use my good old 3-in-1, and as I've mentioned in other videos, any type of oil will do. You can use mineral oil, which is actually one of the best, gun oil, 3-in-1 oil, any sort of oil will do. I can't say for sure, but I'm sure even a cooking oil would do, because guess what? It's an oil. But I wouldn't recommend that. I personally prefer 3-in-1. It's cheap, it lasts a long time, and I'll give you a general method of how I use oil in just a moment. Okay, here we are. I've cleaned up the table, and now it is time for alcohol cleaning. If you are super lazy, you can actually just go straight to oil and clean your sword with oil as well. I prefer to go alcohol, then oil. So let's do that. Just a good liberal amount. You can apply it right to the weapon itself if you want, but I just put it on a paper towel and I then just clean away. And you can see already it's taking off some of the uglies. Good old oil. So I have a couple methods for oil. I'll sometimes put it right on the rag or paper towel itself. I tend to like to use rags with oil more than paper towel, but anything works. And once again, this isn't a pristine show sword for your wall that's been razor sharpened that you want to look really good for when you're cutting pop bottles full of water, right? This is just a practice weapon. So this does the trick. So the method I tend to use is I'll take the oil, get it ready, and I'll actually run the oil down the weapon, and then I'll come with the cloth or the paper towel in this case, and I'll rub it off. For my practice weapons, such as this beautiful one here, I'll put oil on it, I'll let it sit for a little bit, and then I'll usually take 90% of it off with the paper towel or the rag before I put it away. I leave just a small film of it on the weapons themselves to keep it from rusting and protect it over time. Because I use them so much, I don't want to have much oil on them for when I touch them, when I use my gloves. I don't want to get oil all over the place. So I tend to wipe majority of it off in the end. If you're not going to use your sword for a long time, put a liberal coat on that won't drip off and get anything dirty where you're going to store your sword. But if you put a pretty liberal coating on, the more you put on, the longer it'll last and the longer it'll stay protected. There is a trick if you are archiving a sword for a long time. Let's say you know you're not going to be practicing with this sword for a really long time. It's going to sit in a closet or sit somewhere for a while. Vaseline. Vaseline all over the entire blade. Give it a good coating of it. Will archive it for a very, very, very long time. That's just a super trick I found out. I read it somewhere. I didn't believe it. I tried it on one of my swords. I didn't touch the sword for 3 months. Pulled it out of the scabbard, and it was completely fine. It didn't have a single ounce of rust on it. And there we have it. Sword's all oiled. I don't know if you can see the shiny oil on it right now. So that's it. That's some basic sword maintenance. And kind of seems like it's got water on it. That's the oil on it. My regenyei I wiped pretty clean. It's going to be used tonight or tomorrow afternoon at latest. That's it. Hope you like this video. Give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more sword stuff. I hope to have more coming in the future. Reviews of all of these, reviews of some of my sharps, maybe some cutting videos. It'll be awesome. Thank you all for watching. Have a good day.